There's something deeply wrong about certain forests. Not the normal kind of fear. Not the fear of getting lost. Not the fear of wild animals. Something older. Something that makes the air feel heavier the deeper you walk. Places where sound disappears. Places where people vanish. Places where locals refuse to go after dark. And the worst part? Most victims never realize they're in danger until it's already too late. Tonight, you're going to hear 3 disturbing, true-style horror stories about people who entered the woods and encountered things they were never supposed to see. The final story is especially disturbing because, unlike the others, there may still be something waiting in those trees. So, before we begin, subscribe to Mr. Dread if you enjoy creepy stories that slowly get under your skin. And now, let's enter the woods. In October of 2021, a 6-year-old man named Evan drove nearly 4 hours into northern Pennsylvania for a weekend hunting trip. Evan wasn't inexperienced. He'd been hiking and hunting since high school. He liked isolation, actually preferred it. No loud campsites, no tourists, no groups, just miles of woods and silence. A friend at work had told him about a heavily forested area near an abandoned fire road where deer activity was supposedly incredible. Barely anyone went there anymore. That alone convinced Evan to check it out. He arrived late Friday afternoon. Gray sky. Cold wind. The kind of weather that makes every dead tree look darker. The road leading into the forest was mostly gravel and partially washed out. There were no other vehicles parked nearby. No hikers. No cabins. Nothing. Just endless woods. He parked beside a rusted gate, grabbed his backpacking gear, then started hiking toward a small clearing he planned to camp near. The deeper he walked, the quieter things became. At first, he didn't think much of it. Then he noticed something strange. No birds. Not a single one. No insects either. Only wind. And even that sounded distant. Like the woods were absorbing noise. Around sunset, Evan reached the clearing. It was small, maybe 30 feet across, surrounded by massive trees. He set up his tent quickly before dark, then mounted a trail camera facing a nearby animal path. Nothing unusual happened the first night, at least not at first. Around 1:30 a.m., Evan woke up suddenly. Not because of a sound, because of silence. The kind that feels unnatural. His eyes opened slowly inside the tent. Everything outside was pitch black. Then he heard it. Footsteps. Slow. Crunching through leaves. Circling the campsite. He froze immediately. His first thought was a bear. But something felt wrong. The footsteps sounded careful. Measured. Human. Crunch. 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 Slowly moving around the tent, then stopping. He held his breath, waiting. A few seconds later, 3 knocks hit the side of the tent. Tap, tap, tap. Evan's entire body locked up. No one should have been out there, especially at nearly 2 in the morning. He grabbed the flashlight beside him. The footsteps resumed. Moving away now. He listened carefully. The crunching slowly disappeared deeper into the woods. For several minutes, he stayed frozen. Then finally unzipped the tent slightly and aimed the flashlight outside. Nothing. Just trees. Cold fog. Darkness. The rest of the night passed without incident. But Evan barely slept. The next morning, he convinced himself it was probably another hunter messing with him. Still uneasy, he checked the trail camera before heading farther into the woods. At first, the footage looked normal. Several deer. A fox. Then the nighttime recordings appeared. 12:42 a.m. A figure walked across the edge of the frame. Tall. Extremely thin. Too thin. The person appeared almost unnaturally narrow, but the worst part wasn't its appearance. It was the movement. It didn't walk normally. Its arms hung too low, its head tilted strangely, and every few steps, it paused, like it was listening. The figure disappeared into the darkness. Then another clip played. 8:07 a.m. The same figure stood at the edge of the clearing, perfectly still, facing Evan's tent, for almost 13 minutes, not moving once. Evan stared at the footage, trying to understand what he was looking at. Then the final clip began. 132 Amer. The figure was now directly beside the tent. The camera had captured only part of its body. Long fingers, gray skin, and a face that looked almost human, except the mouth seemed stretched far too wide. Then the audio picked something up. 3 soft taps. Exactly what Evan heard. Tap, tap, tap. After that, the figure slowly turned its head toward the camera. The image glitched violently, then cut to static. That was the last recording. Evan immediately packed his gear. He didn't care about hunting anymore. Something deep in his instincts was screaming at him to leave. Fast. But the moment he started hiking back toward the fire road, he realized something terrifying. He couldn't find the trail at all. The forest suddenly looked unfamiliar. Every direction looked identical. Trees, fog, dead leaves. He checked GPS. No signal. He walked for nearly an hour. Nothing looked recognizable. And then he heard it again. Crunch, crunch. Behind him, matching his pace, Evan turned quickly. Nothing. He continued walking faster. The footsteps continued. Always behind him. Always just out of sight. Then came the voice. Avon. Soft. Almost whispering. Coming from somewhere deep between the trees. He stopped instantly. No one out there should have known his name. The voice came again. Closer this time. Avon. He started running. Branches slammed against his arms as he pushed through the woods. The footsteps behind him suddenly became faster. Much faster. No longer walking. Charging. He risked one glance backward and saw something pale moving between the trees. Tall. Fast. Wrong. He sprinted until he nearly collapsed. Then suddenly, he burst onto the gravel road. His truck sat exactly where he left it. Evan threw his gear into the back seat and sped away without looking back. When he finally reached home later that night, he reviewed the trail footage one last time. But something had changed. The final clip no longer showed the creature beside the tent. Now it showed the figure standing directly in front of the camera, staring into the lens, its mouth slowly opening. And according to the timestamp, the recording had been taken at 3:14 p.m., hours after Evan had already left the forest. He deleted the footage immediately. But for weeks afterward, he kept waking up around 1:30 inches the morning, because outside his apartment window, he sometimes heard 3 soft taps. Tap, tap, tap. In the summer of 2018, 4 college friends planned a camping trip deep inside the forests of Oregon. The trip was supposed to celebrate the end of finals. Nothing serious. Just a few days away from the city. The group included Tyler, Mason, Olivia, and Brooke. All of them had camped before. None of them expected anything unusual, at least not at first. The campsite they chose sat near an old ranger trail several miles away from the nearest paved road. According to online reviews, the location was beautiful, quiet, remote, perfect for photography. They arrived just before sunset. The forest looked incredible. Massive pine trees, cold mountain air, everything covered in deep green shadows. Tyler even joked that it looked like the setting of a horror movie. At the time, everyone laughed. The first evening went smoothly. They made food, played music, told stupid stories around the fire. But shortly after midnight, Brooke noticed something odd. A light, far away between the trees. Small, moving slowly. At first they assumed it was another camper, but the light kept appearing and disappearing, sometimes high above the ground, sometimes low, like whoever carried it was moving strangely. Mason yelled out jokingly. No response. The light stopped, then disappeared completely. That should have been enough warning, but they ignored it. The next morning, Olivia noticed footprints near the edge of camp. Bare footprints. Large ones. Much larger than normal. And deep. Like whoever made them was extremely heavy. The strange thing was that the footprints stopped abruptly near the trees. No tracks leading away. Just ending. Tyler thought someone was pranking them. Mason suggested they move campsites. But after a while, everyone relaxed again. Until the second night. That's when things changed. Around 2 a.m., Tyler woke up needing to use the bathroom. He grabbed a flashlight and walked away from camp alone. About 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Then 15. Tyler still hadn't returned. Olivia eventually became concerned. She called out his name. Nothing. Mason grabbed another flashlight and went looking. Brooke stayed behind. The woods felt colder now. Much colder. Every sound seemed amplified. Branches creaking. Leaves moving. Then suddenly, a scream echoed through the forest. Short, sharp, terrified. Mason came sprinting back into camp, completely pale. He said Tyler was gone, but he'd found the flashlight, still turned on, lying beside a tree, and nearby, something huge had been moving through the woods. At first, Brooke thought Mason was panicking, until they heard it themselves. Footsteps, heavy, slow, circling the campsite. The fire suddenly felt useless, tiny, weak. The footsteps continued for nearly 20 minutes, always staying just beyond visibility. Then came another sound, a voice. Help me, Tyler. Or at least it sounded like Tyler, coming from the darkness. Olivia immediately stood up, but Mason grabbed her arm. Because something about the voice sounded wrong, not emotional. Not panicked, flat, almost rehearsed. Help me. Again. Closer now. Then silence. The group stayed awake until sunrise. The moment daylight appeared, they packed everything and started hiking back toward the parking area. But after nearly an hour of walking, Brooke realized something horrifying. They were back at the same campsite, same fire pit, same cooler. Same chairs. They'd somehow walked in a massive circle. Despite following the trail the entire time, panic immediately set in. Mason swore they never turned once. Olivia started crying. Then they heard movement behind them. A tree branch snapped loudly. All three turned. About 50 yards away, something stood between the trees. Tall, dark, watching them. It was difficult to make out clearly, but it seemed unnaturally large. Its shoulders looked too broad, its arms too long, and when it moved slightly forward, they realized it was holding something. Tyler's backpack. The figure tilted its head slowly, then stepped backward into the woods, disappearing. The group immediately ran, this time abandoning nearly all their supplies. After several hours, they finally reached the road and contacted authorities. Search teams spent 3 days looking for Tyler. Nothing was found. No body, no blood, no evidence. Just his backpack, discovered hanging from a tree nearly 30 feet above the ground. No climbing equipment nearby. No explanation for how it got there. Officially, Tyler was listed as missing, presumed dead. But things became even stranger afterward. About 2 months later, Brooke received a voicemail from an unknown number. The recording lasted only 11 seconds. At first there was static, then faint breathing, then Tyler's voice. Soft. Weak. Don't come back for me. The call ended immediately. Police traced the number. It originated from a disconnected line that hadn't been active in years. To this day, none of the 3 remaining friends have ever gone camping again. And according to Brooke, sometimes late at night, she still hears Tyler's voice outside her apartment window, asking for help. This final story comes from a former search and rescue volunteer named Daniel, and according to him, everything you're about to hear is real. Daniel worked with a volunteer rescue team in the forests surrounding eastern Kentucky during the early 2010s. Most calls were normal: lost hikers, missing hunters, injured campers. Nothing unusual. But after several years on the team, Daniel noticed certain cases disturbed the older rescuers more than others, especially disappearances involving children. Whenever those calls came in, experienced team members acted strangely tense, like they were worried about something beyond normal danger. At first, Daniel assumed it was simply because missing child cases are emotionally difficult, but eventually he realized there was more to it. Because several rescuers followed a very specific rule. If they found staircases in the woods, they stayed away from them completely. The first time Daniel heard this, he laughed. He thought it was some weird local joke. Random stairs in the forest? That made no sense. But nobody laughed with him. One older rescuer named Carl became completely serious. He told Daniel that if he ever saw stairs standing alone in the woods, he needed to leave immediately. No touching them. No climbing them. No getting close. Daniel asked why. Carl refused to answer. That should have been enough warning. Several months later, Daniel's team responded to a missing child report. An 8-year-old girl named Lucy had disappeared during a family picnic near a dense forest preserve. According to her parents, she wandered away for less than 5 minutes, then vanished. Search teams arrived quickly. Daniel joined a group heading deeper into the forest as evening approached. The woods there felt strange almost immediately. Too quiet, too still. One rescuer mentioned the temperature seemed colder than normal. Another noticed there were no animal sounds. Then, around sunset, Daniel saw them. Stairs, standing alone in the middle of the forest, perfectly intact. Old carpet still covering the steps. No house, no ruins. Nothing connected to them. Just a staircase leading upward into empty air. Daniel stopped walking. Every instinct told him something was deeply wrong. One of the older rescuers immediately ordered everyone to move away. Nobody argued. Nobody even looked directly at the stairs for very long. The team continued deeper into the woods, but Daniel couldn't stop thinking about them. Hours later, the search was temporarily paused due to darkness. Most teams returned to base, but Daniel stayed behind with another volunteer named Rick to check one final area. That decision changed everything. The 2 men eventually reached a narrow clearing, and there was another staircase. Different this time. Concrete steps, wet with moss, leading upward roughly 15 feet. Daniel immediately felt nauseous. The air around the staircase seemed colder, almost heavy. Rick stared at it silently, then suddenly started walking toward it. Daniel called after him. No response. Rick kept moving, slowly, like he was in a trance. Daniel grabbed his arm. Rick turned suddenly, and, for a split second, his expression looked completely blank, emotionless. Then he blinked, as if waking up. "What?" Rick asked. Daniel told him they needed to leave. Immediately, the two men turned back toward the trail. Then they heard it. A child laughing. Behind them, Daniel froze. The laughter sounded close. Very close. He turned slowly. Nobody there. But the staircase looked different now. The top step appeared higher than before, as if the staircase had grown. Rick whispered something Daniel couldn't understand. Then the laughter came again, this time from above them. Daniel looked up instinctively and saw a little girl standing at the top of the stairs. Lucy, the missing child. Except something was wrong. Very wrong. She stood completely still, head lowered, hair covering her face, and her arms hung unnaturally low. Daniel called her name. No response. Rick took one step toward the staircase. Then Lucy slowly raised her head. Her face looked pale, almost gray, and her smile stretched impossibly wide. Far too wide for a human face. Rick stumbled backward immediately. Then Lucy spoke, but her voice didn't sound like a child anymore. Come up here. Multiple voices overlapped together. Male, female, old, young, all speaking at once. Daniel grabbed Rick and ran. The two men crashed through the woods blindly, branches tearing at their clothes. Neither of them looked back, but behind them, they heard footsteps, dozens of them, rushing through the forest, following. At one point, Daniel risked a glance backward and saw figures moving between the trees. Tall, thin, pale, too fast. And the men finally reached the main trail near midnight. Other rescuers found them shaking uncontrollably. When Daniel explained what happened, nobody seemed surprised, especially Carl. The older rescuer simply asked one question. Did either of you touch the stairs? Daniel said no. Carl looked relieved, then refused to discuss it further. The official search for Lucy continued another 4 days. She was never found, but Rick changed afterward. According to Daniel, he became withdrawn, quiet, distracted. Several weeks later, Rick quit the rescue team completely. Before leaving, he admitted something disturbing. When he approached the staircase, he heard voices, people he recognized, dead relatives, friends, all calling his name, trying to convince him to climb the stairs. About 6 months later, Rick disappeared. No explanation, no note, nothing. His truck was eventually discovered parked near the same forest preserve where Lucy vanished. The driver's side door stood open, keys still inside, but Rick himself was gone. Search teams looked for him for nearly a week. During the search, Daniel found another staircase. This one, older, wooden, rotting, standing deep between the trees. And sitting on the top step was Rick's flashlight, still turned on. Daniel never returned to search and rescue after that. But years later, he shared one final detail that still disturbs him. According to several veteran rescuers, the staircases don't always stay in the same place. Sometimes they appear in completely different parts of the forest. Sometimes they disappear entirely. And occasionally, people report seeing figures standing at the top of them late at night, watching silently, waiting. So if you ever find yourself deep in the woods and come across a staircase leading nowhere, there's only one thing you should do. Turn around and leave immediately, because some things in the forest aren't meant to be found. If you enjoyed tonight's stories, subscribe to Mr. Dread for more disturbing horror stories every week. And comment below, would you ever spend a night alone in the woods after hearing these stories? Sleep carefully, because sometimes the trees are watching too.